crazy. Sorry. This is our first fruits dinner. Are you gonna burn your finger? Ah! All right, this is our first fruits dinner that Isaac made us to celebrate Yeshua's work on first fruits. And what did Yeshua have to eat on first fruits, Hadassah?
Fish and honeycomb.
And matzah. Yeah, so he went to one friend's house, the guys from the road to Emmaus, and he had matzah there. And then he disappears. Then he shows up to the disciples, amidst the disciples, and they are scared because they think he's a ghost. So then he's like, oh, give me something to eat. I'm hungry. I bet he was actually hungry. But so they gave him broiled fish on cilantro with peppers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Seasonings. And what else, Hadassah? One other thing.
Rice?
No. Honeycomb, which
honeycomb.
I failed to get honeycomb for this meal.
Sometimes, huh?
Well, honeycomb you have to get about August in our area. Okay, so this is our last meal of unleavened bread because today is also the last high Shabbat of unleavened bread. So we are going to eat of Yeshua one more time while we eat matzah. What was I say? What kind of lucky is that?
Second high Shabbat of unleavened bread.
Second high
Final
Shabbat.
meal.
Thank you. And today's first fruits, it's all about hope. So for anybody who is sitting at our table with us tonight that we don't know who you are, I just want to suggest that you go watch our Happy Hippie Hebrew Girl show number 18, season 1, where Isaac and I talk about the hope of first fruits. Yeah, and also my book, a pretty cool book that you should get.
Yeah.
Why is my family laughing?
I'm laughing because Maggie's laughing.
I'm laughing because you were doing. Okay, so Isaac showed them that. That is my feast book, my spring feast book. And inside there is a whole chapter on first fruits and what first fruits is all about. All right. Can you stop videoing us from that angle too? I don't know what you're doing, but knock it off.
Oh.
And we'll pray at the end. We're going to close out the Feast of Unleavened Bread and First Fruits by praying at the end. So for now, let's...
Okay.
Like that? Okay, fine. Something like that? Oh, that's good. All right, so tonight, our last meal of Yeshua officially, and hopefully we eat of Yeshua all year long. That would be the idea. That's the goal. He sends Shalom ahead of him. Got it? Okay.
There's lots more.
Yeah. All right. So this is fairly short, but it says this is a practice of Yeshua's. So this isn't necessarily a characteristic, but it is a practice of Yeshua. It's something that Yeshua does a lot, and we see him do it in the stories that we have that are recorded. He sends Shalom ahead of him. I love the study that Renali did on Shalom, and so her study is called The Gospel of Shalom. So it's pretty incredible. Do you remember it, Isaac? The Gospel of Shalom.
Okay.
It's in the link to it, if you want to know, is in the description of my Shalom video in the Hebrew vocab block, basics block. There's the link to go check out her website and download the Gospel of Shalom. Okay, so we're going to do as he did. Whoops. So we're going to do as he did and send Shalom Aleichem ahead of us into places that we go. for the purpose of destroying the authorities that cause and establish chaos. Do you remember that? So you send Shalom ahead of you. So Shalom, Shalom ahead of you. Shalom Aleichem. To destroy the authorities that cause and establish chaos. So Yeshua did this. Isn't that interesting? So we follow his instructions on how to use Shalom. In Matthew 10, 12 to 13, it says, when you enter someone's household, say Shalom Aleichem. If the home deserves it, let your Shalom rest on it. If not, then let your Shalom return to you. And he says it again to the 70 in Luke 10:14. Isn't that interesting? That you can just say a word. That's what it sounds like. Say Shalom Aleichem. And if the home deserves it, then let your peace stay there. And if it doesn't deserve it, then take it back. And brush the dirt off your feet, the dust off your sandals, and go to the next place. That doesn't fly with today's world. He's clearly letting us make distinctions.
Right.
Between the good, bad, and the ugly, between black and... He's making black and white statements. And this world, the way it is, does not appreciate black and white statements. They almost make it a crime.
Right.
Actually, it is a crime in many cases.
You're likely to get punished if you do.
I know.
At least verbally. Oh. Maggie, could you tear one of these in half?
Oh yeah, the bread piece.
For me?
Sorry, more.
Should we bless Yeshua for being the bread? How about we do that? Hadassah, how about you do it? Let's do it together. You want to do it together? I know it's totally flowery. You want to do it?
Thank you, Yeshua, for being the bread and the unleavened one.
Yay! Baruch atah Yehovah. Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Yeshua HaMashiach melech haolam. And Baruch at Ruach HaKodesh Melech haolam.
He's the bread of life.
That's right. Oh, well, that's salty. In the Gospel of Shalom, she kind of breaks it down and says that your Shalom is almost like a possession. So we're seeing that Yeshua owns Shalom, and it's like a possession, and he uses it like a sword. He uses it when he needs it. Renali's study, she looks at how Shalom starts with war. So to destroy the authorities that establish chaos. So I guess we need to get the study and reread it again, but basically he sends Shalom ahead of where he was to go. She actually talks about Shalom angels of peace, that he sends ahead to destroy the authorities that cause chaos. So Yahweh says in Isaiah 57:19, he says, I will create the right words. Shalom, shalom to those far off and those nearby. That's what Yahweh says. So he's actually talking about the scattered, I think, at that point. I will create the right words. Shalom, shalom to those far off and those nearby. Shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. So sending Shalom allows him to take ground for Yahweh and prepares the way for him to do mighty miracles. Psalms 122:6-8 talks about this. He sends Shalom ahead of him into every city and home where he would be going. You see that in Matthew and Luke when he sends out the 70. They're actually going out ahead of him where he's going to go. So they're going kind of in front of him to clear the way. So I think that's pretty cool. So that takes looking at the Gospel of Shalom, I think reading that and understanding how she's figuring that out. But I like that. I think the Gospel of Shalom is awesome. And I think it's something that Yeshua obviously practiced. Since that was so quick, let's finish this and our last one in the book is deals with the leaven.
Yeah. Hopefully it's flipped in the
It is.
one that goes out. Yeah.
I hope so. If it's not, I think it is. So Yeshua deals with the leaven. That's something. That's a character, or it's something that Yeshua did. He dealt with the leaven. So what leaven? What kind of leaven are we talking about here, Maggie?
People.
The leaven of the Pharisees.
Leaven of the Pharisees, leaven of the people. Okay, so can you name anybody that he?
Judas.
Yeah. And when did he actually get rid of the leaven of his assembly? Which was right before Passover.
Day before Passover.
So this makes it super clear that that last meal was not and could not have been the Passover. It couldn't have been the Seder because Judas was right there. And according to the commandment, you have to get rid of the leaven before that meal. So there was no way that, and then on top of it, remember in the bread that he breaks, in the actual Hebrew, it's loaf, and a loaf indicates, it's a different word than the flatbread, the matzah. The yeast loaf, which couldn't have been part of that meal. So it was clearly not, the Seder, because he hadn't dealt with the leaven yet, but he did that night. All right. So he deals with the leaven in our hearts. He deals with the leaven in our assembly, in the assembly. Here, he doesn't allow the leaven to exist in his presence. He doesn't allow the leaven to exist in his presence. Okay. Ah! So a lot of times people will say, well, I want to go be like Jesus, so I'm going to go hang out with the underdog. I'm going to go hang out with the drunks and the poor and the adulterers and all the, because Yeshua did. Okay, but he never allowed the leaven to continue to exist in his presence. He dealt with it. So he didn't just go down and muck around with them and just love on them and just help them
accept them
and just accept them or accept them in that state, to stay in that state. I mean, everything he did was to change them, to bring them out of that state. Whatever that was, he wanted to change their life. He didn't want to just love them and leave them. And can you imagine him coming up to somebody who was, demon possessed or an adulterer or somebody who was sick or blind or something, and just go, oh, I love you so much, bye-bye, just walking away. Or all the money changers in his papa's temple, going, don't you guys know this is wrong? Okay. All right. So I want this changed by tomorrow or, maybe by Friday, but definitely get this done by Shabbat. All right. See you later. He deals with it. It's in his face. He deals with it. I think I could chat about that for a long time, I think.
And also, leaven is like yeast, right?
Leaven is yeast, yes.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves on loving people where they're at. When he didn't do that, that's not what he did.
He didn't want people to just stay where they were.
No. That wasn't the point. That wasn't his goal to just make them feel good for a moment. His goal was to change their life and bring them away from that, whatever it was that they were in bondage to. So I think we've got it completely backwards. You give somebody a fish and that feeds them for a day, but you teach them how to fish and then they'll feed them for life kind of thing. So he didn't just go down to a soup kitchen and, serve soup to the poor for an evening.
Right.
Or for weeks and weeks on end. That was not what he did. He went and solved the problem. Yeshua tells us to watch out for the leaven of religious leaders. Matthew 6, I can't read this, Matthew 6:16, Matthew 16:6 and 11. He says it all the time. Tells us to watch out for the leaven of the religious leaders. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Oh
my gosh, my family's like falling apart. Yeshua tells us to watch out for the leaven of religious leaders.
Yep.
He says it over and over and over.
Yep. A little leaven destroys the whole lump.
Right. Yeah, so you have a leavened pastor and the whole entire congregation is going to be leavened. Yeah. Leaders are powerful. You have to know what leaven is in order to know
Who's got it?
who's got it. So the only way to know what leaven is to look at what the law says.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody is not living according to Yehovah Elohim's law, then they are leavened. There's a part of them that's leavened. Something. I mean, they could be doing some of it, and but they're still leavened in their life. So clearly, they're not. If they're continuing in that, they're not concerned with getting leaven out, or they don't know
Right.
what leaven is, and they don't even know. We were full of leaven, and we didn't even know it. And we've still probably got some leaven that we don't know of, and we got to get out. I don't know. What would you say to somebody who is just figuring this out? That religious leaders are full of leaven. They're full of it. They're full of wickedness, and they're sons of Hasatan, most of them. Like,
Say, beware.
yeah.
It can seem so safe.
Mm-hmm.
And you might feel so above it, like, oh, I can just go in here and I'll just
Right.
take the good and leave the bad. And it can seem so innocuous and so safe.
Because they could be doing a whole lot of good things.
Right.
It could be a church that's worshiping on Sunday, celebrating Christmas and Easter and all the rest, but man, they have a soup kitchen, or they have a really great missions program where they go across the seas and they, make disciples of, which Yeshua had words for that. Or they understand a part of the law. Maybe they understand part of it, but they don't understand other really important parts, and they're teaching, just picking and choosing what they want to teach. But we can't live with the leaven. You can't sit there. I don't know how people sit there.
Don't touch it.
Yeah, Papa said don't touch the leaven, and so I don't know how people can sit in a pew once they know the truth.
Right.
I don't know how they can sit in a pew and listen to a leavened pastor or be a part of a leavened church, just for fellowship. I'm sorry, but we've done it. We've done it without fellowship for how long?
12 years?
12, no, has it been? That's been longer than that. 2003. I think the whole fellowship thing, it's important, but it doesn't surpass obedience. It's not more important than obedience.
Yeah.
And you can't sit in a pew and think that this leavened pastor, leavened denomination, or leavened program is going to serve you well. In the end, it's going to confuse your heart. It's going to confuse your children, right? What do you want to say? You said something?
And from my thing right here, it says,
the stories.
Cleanses Yehovah temple.
Yeah.
Yeshua entered the temple area and drove out all who were buying and selling there.
Right.
He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves.
That's right, selling the doves. That was really cool. I like how John Eldridge talks about how he had the presence of mind in that moment to not toss over the doves in the cages, but he tossed over everything else and made a whip and got rid of the cattle. But then he's like, he didn't touch the doves' cages. He just commanded, get them out of here. Because if he had thrown those over, he would have hurt the doves. He had really good presence of mind in the middle of fervor and heat and righteous indignation. All right, You're just talking about, he removed the leaven from his father's house. He removes the leaven from his fellowship with Judas, and he removes the leaven from our hearts during Hanukkah. That's what Hanukkah is all about. And he says he will make us white as snow. Isaiah 1:18. We are to remove yeasty people from our fellowship during unleavened bread. That's what Shalom talks about. So if we had a fellowship.
And how do we do that?
Huh?
How do we do that?
How do we remove leavened people from our fellowship, Isaac?
As gently as possible.
As gently as possible, with as much love as you can possibly muster, to obey the command by getting the leaven out, but taking care of the people's hearts and obeying the command to love, but care for the other person's hearts.
From personal experience, that nobody likes to be removed. Nobody likes to be asked to leave. And so there's not really any pretty way to do it.
I know. Just
be sure, be certain.
Do it with a lot of love.
Yeah. You don't try to force them to understand. You know, be respectful of their space and their person. And
I don't think people would understand, especially in today's world.
yeah.
Like,
Accept everyone.
accept everyone, and but you can't. He's clearly making distinction between things that are leavened and things that are not, things that are yeasty, things that are not, and things that are good and things that are bad, and or bad and good. And he's clearly making that distinction between those things, and if we're going to eat of him and do likewise, then we have to make distinctions. So it's okay. Just one more thing to stories. He removes Judas from his fellowship before unleavened bread. John 13:21-30. He cleansed his father's house the day before Passover. Did you know that? He actually
you did mention that. I hadn't noticed that.
in the chronological gospels, it says that he cleaned the temple the day before Passover. Okay, so he cleansed his father's house the day before Passover at the start of his ministry. Okay, so right when he started, remember he came out of the wilderness on Rosh Hashanah. 14 days later, it's Passover, but he's not the lamb. It's when he started his ministry. So, but one of his first acts was to cleanse the temple that Passover, right before Passover. That's John 2:13. And then the second time is he removed the money changers from his father's house 3 days before he was the Passover lamb. That's pretty cool. How about we pray and close out unleavened bread with a prayer, and we'll continue.
Okay.
We're done with that. So, okay, Yehovah Elohim. Oh, I thank you for your feasts. I love this rhythm. You're just amazing in this whole epic battle between you and your enemy. You've won, and man, you guys came up with a pretty amazing plan. I'm just stunned by it. It's just stunning, and it's captivating. I want to thank you for unleavened bread this week, for the chance to eat of Yeshua together here at the cabin by the beach. Thank you for the people who joined us for dinners and for breakfasts every day. And I just pray with all my heart that we learn how to eat of your Son, the bread that you have prepared for us, so that we can walk the narrow path and get to the happily ever after. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, done.